You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another very interesting episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul. I have a very special guest today, Mr. Mike Wall, who has been a career firefighter. Mike, welcome.
Thank you again, Paul.
No, definitely. I'm actually really excited for this show because we're going to be talking about what are the best public safety drones for your drone program. And with that said, I want to give a quick shout out to Colorado Drone Chargers. If you're looking for a fast, efficient way to charge your batteries, you want to charge all of your batteries all at one time. Instead of using a hub charger where they charge in sequence and it takes 4 or 5 hours to charge 4 batteries, why not charge all of them in just 1 hour? You've got to check out Colorado Drone Chargers and get yourself a multi-charger because frankly, there is not a better system out there. Check out coloradodronechargers.com. All right, Mike, so I got a couple of questions for you, actually a lot of them. And the things that I want to hit are, in your opinion, what is the best public safety drones? I want to talk about is form factor a big deal? I want to talk about having multiple drones, and then also kind of talking about some of the new stuff that's come out and some of the software changes that we've seen with a lot of these drones. But let's just punch the bear in the face. What is, in your opinion, the best public safety drone on the market? And here's the caveat, Mike. You have to actually be able to buy these drones.
Absolutely.
This cannot be like a marketed...
This can't be an idea.
Yeah, yeah. And there's been a lot of ideas this year.
We're not going with an Israeli company that is...
Or drones are like, hey, we sell these drones now, but you can't buy them anywhere.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
All right, so let's punch this bear.
But you bring up a good point about price point, and that has to be a factor when considering your drone. It's not only what is available for that UAS, it's how much is it?
Yeah.
And that's a definite consideration for departments. I think the Mavic series has always been a staple for public safety.
Well, I mean, they kind of came out first before anyone, you know. Yeah, I remember we were at that conference in Dallas. I think that was like 2017 or something. Yeah. And they finally launched the first edition of the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual. Now, to clarify for everyone watching the show, this is the Mavic Enterprise Dual Advanced, where the thermal sensor is about 17 times better than the old Mavic. But no, I hear you that the Mavic series has always kind of been the powerhouse.
And that is the newest one out there, and I believe that is the best one for public safety at the moment.
So, you know, how big is form factor? How big of a deal is that in space that's available in your rigs, the ability to travel from takeoff point to takeoff point? How important is form factor? Because this Mavic is very small. Absolutely. It's foldable. You can put it in a backpack. How important is that?
Now you're considering a UAS program that is for a paid department, and you have to look outside of that and realize the majority of UAS programs for firefighting will be that volunteer single resource operating from his car or her car. And so absolutely, that small footprint is always an issue. And even while operating at scene, you can operate with an M300, but wouldn't you rather fly over everybody on scene to transverse people with a Mavic over a 300?
Well, you know, according to the new remote ID rules, which again, we'll see if those go through with the legal challenge, but they have those 3 categories of flight over people. And I know it's different for public safety, but that said, I believe this Mavic would qualify under that Cat 2, where it's the sub 11 pounds of kinetic force, essentially. So I agree with you that if something bad happens, the propensity for catastrophic is much lower with a smaller drone than a larger one.
It is, and even taking that into consideration, when you operate at an event, you still want to hopscotch over those adjoining buildings if there are one, and
like flying over the roof lines.
Absolutely, it's just a safer way to fly. You have a termination point that's not going to injure anybody. And it just makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I know Autel just launched their new Evo 2 Dual Enterprise.
With geofencing now.
It has geofencing now.
Yes.
So the thing that like was a major selling factor for the Autel series, you're saying no more.
It was the selling factor.
Oh wow.
In my opinion, for when I operate it, the selling factor is I am not geofenced.
Yeah.
And I don't have to deal with the issues associated with unlocks.
Yeah.
That DJI is great as that Mavic is, that you have the potential for it.
And you can use the qualified entity program to like fully unlock the drone.
Yes.
Yeah. And now you can even unlock it on your own, by the way, using Drone Hacks and their certificate. But that said, let's talk about price point too, because you brought that up earlier. I think it's important. I think we paid just north of $7,000 for the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual Advance, tax and shipping included. I just saw the price point of the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual. I just saw the price point of the Autel Evo 2 Dual Enterprise. I thought it was about $10,000, but the price points that I saw just doing a quick Google search on the batteries, because John and I were talking about in another show how Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual has self-heating batteries. Autel's, they don't. And I thought that was actually a pretty big deal, especially for fire departments like yours that are operating oftentimes in cold weather. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a big deal. But looking at the price point, it was about $12,000 for the Autel drone versus, let's say, all the accessories included charger, you're at $8,000 with the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual. In your eyes, what is the better purchase?
I think it's a no-brainer. I think that Mavic is the way to go, especially with the accessories that you can add to it, which you can't with the Autel.
Well, I think the new Autel has like a strobe and a light too. I think they have a speaker now.
They do have the speaker.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But did we actually answer the question of what is the best drone for like a volunteer department?
Absolutely. It's the brand new Mavic that just came out.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. When it comes to having multiple drones, do you feel like it's necessary for departments to have multiple drones? Because my next question was going to be about this Mini 2, because I've seen a lot of companies and public safety agencies using the Mini 2 as like a disposable camera, flying it inside of buildings, doing confined space stuff. Last ditch effort, they throw a Mini 2 up. So how important is it to have multiple drones?
Well, like you said, with this Mavic 2, I believe it's $6,500 without tax and everything else. It's disposable, in my opinion. At $6,500, that is disposable.
Oh, wow.
And you have to look at the bigger picture, because what are you doing? You're supplying data.
Yeah.
Right? You're protecting members. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at it as a way to augment a member going into an area of operation that has the potential for them to be catastrophically hurt.
Yeah.
So if a perfect example is that the M300 or M200 series. Mm-hmm. If you have an event, a hazmat event, you can drop that down, and now you have metering for hours.
So it kind of goes back to the other show that we did in programs, really identifying their areas of usage and utilizations for drones, that it's really kind of department centric. It's customized.
Absolutely. And even looking at drones that are older, like the Inspire 1 is still a workhorse for a lot of agencies.
I love that drone.
And perfect for hazmat situations, because it can carry a payload. And when you're done, you don't have to decon it. You can just leave it in that hole if you need to, and purchase another one, because deconning members on scene is the same price as repurchasing that equipment.
Wow, that's fascinating right there. That's really fascinating. So going back to the best drones for public safety, you just kind of talked about the M300, M210, that if you're in a larger department, you're doing a lot of hazmat stuff, that could be good for you. What about some of the more domestic options that are out there? Is there anything that's kind of piquing your interest right now, or it's just they're too expensive, don't offer the same features?
I think the price point on the majority of U.S. models are way out of reach for the typical public safety operator.
Huh. Wow. That's fascinating. I also do know a public safety agency that recently ordered one of the blue SUAS. They ordered it back in May or something.
Okay.
Still haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah. Well, I think less is more.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
So I'm not saying there isn't a use case for it, and that's another topic that you can actually discuss in a different, podcast. Is that there are use cases for every type, and you need multiple UAS in your agency to operate for each one of those use cases. So for that drone, there is a use case for it. I kind of feel like there are better options that are not even drone related.
Really?
That could be put into play.
So, speaking about that, I think you and I had two different drones on the mind, but I think I know which drone you're talking about. We had On Good Sing on the show kind of talking about the Brink drone, and they break glass with it and they do all this stuff. Very hard to learn how to fly because it's essentially an FPV flight controller. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're better for law enforcement. Maybe we should be asking that question for law enforcement. But when it comes to those drones, do you see a place for those aircraft in your fire department?
Well, no. I think the general idea for fire service is overwatch and protection of members.
Okay.
And that serves a different use case.
Gotcha. Okay, well, simple answer. Let me ask you this. Fixed wing.
Mm-hmm.
Fixed wing aircraft. Do you think there are any departments that could benefit from a fixed wing aircraft? And are there any fixed wing that come to mind?
Absolutely. I always go back to that EB.
Oh, okay.
It's easy to operate. It's a shake and toss, and you were done.
That shake and toss, man. Don't get me started on that one.
But it's
if you shake it more than 3 times, you might be playing with it. Anyway,
but it serves a purpose. And I think if you're in an area that you're dealing with brush fires, wildland fires, or you have a large swath of unobstructed open sky, I think it's a great alternative to a UAS like this.
Yeah, no, and there's the Wingtra drone with the VTOL takeoff. There's Aero Environments, Quantix, kind of same VTOL. And then now you have Autel with their Dragonfish. I got to say the price point on that thing, and they're selling out of them. I mean, people love them, but the price point is 6 figures. And I don't know about you, but I'm like, why not just buy a Cessna used for $60,000?
Absolutely, and you're not going to get a volunteer department to drop that amount of money when it's difficult enough for them to purchase something like this.
Yeah, no, and in fact, when thinking about departments that would use fixed wing, I kind of think of departments like Rancho Cucamonga, largest county in California, and the fires that they have. I mean, it seems like it makes sense for them, but
it doesn't make sense for an urban environment.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let me ask you this. In my mind, I'm trying to hit as many scenarios as possible where drones could be used. Persistent surveillance, doing like parade monitoring and whatnot. What do you think about a type of drone for
Overwatch?
Yeah, sure.
Well, you can't. You can't. Don't say surveillance. Okay. Don't say things like that, right?
Protecting the parade from Boston bombers. Okay, so it's not surveillance. It's really it's keeping people safe. But I think you know what I mean. But as far as the actual operation itself, is there a drone that comes to mind that would be good for that?
Tethered systems are out there, and I think for large-scale events like that, where you're at a fixed location providing overwatch for a specific area, there is a use case for a tethered system.
Have you ever seen the Easy Aerial tethered system?
I have. I've actually spoken with Ito, and I've visited, and great. Unbelievable.
I think it's cool that system can be launched, landed on the moon, landed on the move, but it can also detach from the tether.
Absolutely.
And fly for, I think it's like 50 minutes or something like that.
And they have a unique charging capability too, where it's on the feet, and it rotates and...
I think I know where that came from, by the way.
Oh, I don't know.
We had a drone U instructor went over and worked for them. And 10 years ago, I developed an inductive charging system for Sandia National Labs. I don't know, Peter. What do you think?
And they're working, and they're specific. They do a lot of DOD. So,
I know,
so I think they have to be on scene in 60 seconds.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, they have the hyper fast deployment.
It's fast.
Yeah. He developed I think it's the Falcon or something like that. But no, great system. So okay, we've covered little drones, we've covered big drones, we've covered fixed wing, we've covered tether. Any other drones out there, or any other pieces of information that you feel like are a necessity for decision makers when it comes to procurement?
I think if a department purchases a cheap $50 drone without any GPS, where it's strictly ADI to practice on, where you can knock it against the wall, it's $30, and keep on knocking it against that wall until you're proficient in operating in a GPS denied environment.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about operating on scene. I'm talking about your day-to-day practice.
Yeah.
It's the way to go. And sometimes a cheap nothing drone is the best way to test your pilots on how well they operate.
Well, and here at Drone U, we've been telling people to do exactly that since almost the very beginning, talking about that Sima drone, again, cheap.
That Sima is $35, I think.
Yeah, it's stupid.
And you could buy a handful of them and just go to town.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, Mike, I really appreciate having you on the show. I know you've helped a lot of people make decisions, and appreciate your opinion on the best public safety drones out there. So hopefully we can have you on again soon.
Thanks again, as always, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone watching, listening. Don't forget to leave us a review. Let us know how we did. If you have a public safety question, go to askdroneu.com and upload it right away. But thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.